This is part of the virtual learning experiences that Solved is presenting for New York State. And these courses have been created by the state and then have been kind of streamlined by some of our consultants. And the goal is to consider a broader perspective around teaching and to bring the best practices to teachers and help them as they build their pedagogy. And it is going to be recorded, so if you want a let me just looks like someone trying to come in. Okay. If you would like a recording of the session, you can request it. You will automatically receive your CTLE credit in the next couple of days. The recording is not sent out automatically, but if you would like it, you can respond to the email when you get your CTLE certificate, and they will send you the recording as well. And I'm going to just put the link to the slides in the chat for our newcomer. Oh, I can't because I'm sharing my screen. Stop sharing for a second. Okay. So for today, we are going to take an inquiry stance. We're going to ground statements and evidence, assume positive intentions, take responsibility for impact, sticking to protocol, and making sure that everyone has a chance to speak. And so with the size of our group today, if you will have ample opportunity if you would like to. We will end by 3:30, and if you can just be here. And I know, Ms. Pearson, you're driving, but I know you're listening, so that's great. Okay. So the course for today is the Inclusive Hybrid Classroom and ELL and ML students. And it is part of Module 4, Course C in the professional learning series that we have been presenting. So I know that we have Ms. Nelson and Ms. Pearson and our new educator. Do you want to just introduce yourself in the chat? Let us know where you're from, or if you want to unmute and you can just tell us whatever is more comfortable. All right, well, you can put it in the chat if you would like.
I'm sorry. I forgot to add, I remember you asked me what do I teach?
Yes.
I'm a science teacher. I teach living environment.
Oh, okay. And do you teach high school students, I guess?
Yes, I'm certified 7 through 12, but the last few years, my focus has been 9 through 12.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to be looking at how to support learners in the inclusive classroom, planning for embedded instructional supports by identifying portable practices and nurturing an inclusion and growth mindset for students, for ELLs and MLs in our classrooms. My computer is really not cooperating today. Okay. And this is our agenda for today. So the focus is on activating and building background knowledge, and thinking about a time for yourself where you felt included and then excluded. Not, it could be in the same space, it could be in, two different experiences. I'm going to put the Padlet link in the chat, and I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to put the Padlet link in the chat, and you can just answer that there. So just take a minute and think about a time. It doesn't have to be in school. If it's in school, that's great. And if it's not, that's fine too. But just an experience where you felt like you were included and an experience where you felt you were excluded.
Okay. So you just want us to add it as a comment?
Yeah, that's either way. Don't worry about it. If it came out, if it wasn't added to the comment, that's fine. Okay. So Ms. Nelson, was that your post about the?
It was.
Okay. Was there another situation that felt more inclusive?
Yes, I'm working on it right now.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. If you want to just share it verbally, you can do that.
Okay. So my excluded time is being in a meeting, and there was a problem, and instead of, getting on a pedestal and saying, I don't agree with this is wrong, I waited and I came back to the next meeting, and I came up with a solution that was focused idea, right? And it was immediately shot down. Like, you could tell that two of the people were immediately looking for reasons to say why this wouldn't work. And the confirmation was, I had a colleague who was like, I think what Ms. Nelson is saying is this, and this is why we should do it. And that is a good idea. And only after that happened did the other two people kind of back off a little bit. And the time I felt included was this same job where we were what I call a superhero team. We worked really well together. Everybody did their part, and we created lots of great projects. For one example, because we have a little more freedom than the traditional school, we created a CSI day. where they came into school and it was like a Friday and there was a mystery and they had to solve the mystery. So they used all the disciplines, science, math, ELA, art, to solve the case of the missing donuts. And so
Oh, I love
yeah, you could tell that the kids really liked it. The adults really liked it. And everybody, it took everybody and everybody played their part. And that's why it worked well. Thank you. Yeah, and we attached it to the I mean, you can choose any characters, but we attached it to the Simpsons characters. And so we each were a different character and we wore like little pictures of the characters on our shirt. So it was like, did Homer do it? Did Lisa do it? Which one of us as a character did it?
Yeah, I like it. That's really great. And stuff like that, excuse me, as a team, I mean, I think it's really great to feel like part of a team, whether it was the, you and your colleagues feeling like you were part of the team, and or your students feeling like they were working collaboratively together to figure it out. So yeah, that's really, I love that. That sounds really fun. Okay. Here we go. Welcome, Miss Lewis. We are just getting started. So we were just talking about experiences where you feel either included or excluded, and kind of what that looks like, and why you feel that way. Because the focus for today is helping our students feel included, and specifically our ELL and our ML students. Okay, so this, I'm going to show you a video of, it's called a student viewpoint, and it's essentially a video of a student who was a special ed student, and an experience that it's really more about an experience that his former teacher had when she ran into him after he had graduated. So are you guys, you guys are seeing the full screen?
No, I see it says slide 8, and then off to the side you see slide 8 of 30.
Okay, this is my computer. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Let's try this again. If this is not going to be pretty, but you'll see the slide. So now, do you see the whole slide?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Right. And it's about a 4-minute video.
My name is Gina Lawrence, and I'm the principal of Central Middle School. In the time I've been in this role, our school has made a lot of progress. We've increased our test scores, improved our attendance rates, and added technology in our classrooms. So you can see why I'm so proud of Central Middle. By most standards, our school is a success. But yesterday, something happened that opened my eyes to a problem I'd never recognized. I'd stopped by our local zoning office to make sure I had the right permits for a fall festival. As I walked into the office, I was surprised to see Tim, one of our former special education students, working behind the counter. After completing middle school, he went to Monet High School, and then I lost track of him. I do remember Tim seemed rather disconnected and uninterested in school, and that our teachers worried he wouldn't finish high school. Tim, I didn't know you worked here. It's nice to see you again. How are you?
Hi, Mrs. Lawrence. It's good to see you too. I'm doing well.
How long have you been working here? What kind of things do you do?
I've been working here since I graduated from high school. I pull permits, answer zoning questions, and help people complete their paperwork, and I really enjoy it.
Wow, it seems like just yesterday that you were at Central. So you finished high school already?
Yeah, I had a great experience at Monet High School. I finally felt like I fit in and was learning something.
So tell me about high school. What made it such a great experience?
Well, I took all of my classes with the other kids, so I wasn't stuck in special ed classes all day. Reading was still hard, but I got accommodations and got hooked up with some cool technology that helped a lot. I made friends in regular classes and got involved in school activities. Plus, the teachers worked with me to figure out my strengths and interests and help me plan what I was going to do after high school.
As I drove back to Central Middle, I realized how troubled I was by my encounter with Tim. It was hard to hear that he didn't feel like he fit in, that he really wasn't learning. I didn't have time to think about it much because when I got back to school, I found that our latest test scores had arrived. It was a disheartening report. The scores for our students with disabilities had gone down for the second year in a row. Because of our students' performance, I was asked to attend a meeting with our district superintendent. During that meeting, he praised my efforts in many areas of improvement, but expressed concern that our students with disabilities were testing lower than most other comparable schools in the region. He made it clear that I needed to improve the outcomes for these students, as we might not make AYP next year. And then he suggested I speak with the principal of Monet High School, Tim's old school. It turns out that Monet High's test scores were similar to ours several years ago. Evidently, that principal implemented a number of changes in order to create a more inclusive school environment. Inclusion. I've heard the word thrown around a lot, but I'm not exactly sure what it means. I just wish I knew more about it.
Here's your challenge. What is inclusion and why is it important? What model can school leaders use to guide the change necessary for creating inclusive school environments? How can school leaders prepare for the changes required to create?
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. And we're just going to talk because that video is really, a lot of it was geared for principals, but we're just going to talk a little bit about what is inclusion. Is based on your experience, how would you define it? And how do you or do you implement it in your classroom? And if so, how? And you can either, yes, Ms. Nelson?
So for me, it happens via differentiation. It means that whatever we're working on, ultimately the topic is for everybody. Now, how everyone gets that information may be different. Right? Like some may watch a video with subtitles, some may read a short book, some may do some type of activity. And it's not so much even that it has to be like a rotation, but it's something where everyone in the room feels like they can understand the information and they're still part of the community.
Okay. Anyone else want to share? Providing an access point for all students. Okay. Anyone else? Great. Okay. So we are going to pick up the laptop. So inclusion is not just for students with disabilities or in face-to-face situations. There are hybrid opportunities for inclusion as well. And that can be done in some ways you can think about a hybrid classroom. We often think about a hybrid classroom as kind of what we had during the pandemic for a lot of people, where students were in some days and online some days. And that's one version of a hybrid classroom, but you could also think of a hybrid classroom as a classroom where students are learning both with the teacher, but virtually as well. And, you know, it could be sort of a flipped classroom idea where either they're learning, they're going home with and watching a video at night and then coming into school with live instruction, or even in station teaching, that some of the instruction is being done via video. There are lots of versions of, I think hybrid can encompass a variety of structures. So these are some of the challenges of a hybrid classroom, depending on whether it's in person or virtual. So hybrid courses would replace 20 to 80% of class meetings with online activities are predicted to increase as educators embrace the benefits of blending online technologies with face-to-face class meetings. Also expected to increase are enrollments of ESL, EFL students. Researchers proclaim this delivery to be the best of both worlds, the infinite freedom of the internet enhanced and made manageable by regular classroom interaction. And I would encourage you, again, to just think about how can you use technology to essentially allow you to be in more than one place at a time. And so thinking about the flipped classroom idea, or just having students use like an ed puzzle, working in a station while you're working with a small group, and then flipping it. There are lots of different ways that it can be used to support the learning of students, and can also, instruction can be differentiated in that way as well. Okay, so take a look at the questions. Think about what percentage you think of New York State public school K-12 students are ELLs. What percent of New York City public school students are MLs, which are multilingual learners? And then how many different languages are spoken in New York City? So percentage of K-12 ELL students in the state is 10%. And of that 10%, 57% are newcomers and 35% are developing. So they're newly arrived or still at that stage of learning the language. In New York City, multilingual learners, 14% of the student body, and 24% of them are classified as having a disability, as opposed to 18% of all students. And multilingual learners are over-referred to special education. And we speak 151 languages in New York City schools. Spanish, Chinese, and Arabic are the top three. Okay. So just in terms of thinking about inclusion and what it means, this diagram just kind of gives you a visual of what inclusion looks like, as opposed to exclusion, segregation, and integration. This is kind of a cool little video.
And the Hopkins trip comes after St. Louis native Bob Bankin spent several months at the space station. Now another St. Louis native is taking part in a launch this weekend of the Sentinel-6 spacecraft.
Fox 2's Michaela McGee has that story all new tonight.
As a freshman at Kirkwood High, Deja Williams was mistakenly enrolled into an honors geometry class and expected to fail. And now, At 26 years old, she is a manufacturing engineer for NASA.
The teacher who put me into honors math, she told me it was a mistake. She really didn't think that, I was up to par, but that mistake she made took me this far.
Deja Williams has always been smart, but never in her wildest dreams did she imagine she would one day work for the world's leading organization for the study of science and space.
Sometimes I still have to pinch myself. It's always like an exhilarating experience to just be around so many smart people and just being present.
Deja played basketball and attended Kirkwood High School, then went on to become a student athlete at Missouri S&T, one of the top engineering schools in the country. But like most young girls, becoming an engineer was not her first option.
My mom, she convinced me to go into a STEM field, and she saw that I was getting kind of good at math and science. So she was like, why don't you explore this? There's not a lot of women. There's not a lot of Black people in this field. See what you can do and see if you can make a change.
Deja has had a lot of success in her life, but her path to NASA was met with leaps and hurdles.
It's just always been a fight to, prove myself,
She's now living in LA and helping NASA prepare for the launch of Sentinel-6. Her advice for those who aspire to reach for the stars:
put yourself out there. Apply for things that you don't think you qualify for. Take classes that you don't think you're smart enough for. It'll take you farther than you realize.
Reporting, Michaela McGee, Fox 2 News.
Okay, so expectations are the strongest or have a stronger effect on student achievement than any other factor that's been studied so far. So when we believe that students can do it, they are more often able to do it than not. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it does mean that it's possible. And also, I would say when the level of the task is at that, that we're not dumbing things down for them. We may need to break it down and have them go through smaller steps to get to where they're going. But we still want everyone to be shooting for that same level of achievement, even if it takes them a little bit longer to get there. And I've seen over and over again teachers who don't think that their students can do something, and then when they're given the support, coaching support, and they are given the right resources, they're amazed at what students are able to do. Okay, so these are some of the things that we're going to be looking at. Research says the key shift for teaching multilingual language learners is translanguaging, which we're going to explore, multilingual ecology, teaching bilinguals even if you're not one. It's a short video that we're going to look at, and then classroom image. So placing students in segregated classrooms based on their learning needs has not been effective for the instruction of students from diverse backgrounds. Students with and without disabilities have demonstrated increased academic performance following the implementation of inclusive practices. All students in inclusive environments have the opportunity to engage with rigorous curricula. This is a little difficult to see, so I'm going to stop sharing for a minute, and I have it on a PDF for you. And I'm also going to share a list of the links from this presentation so that you have that if you are interested. So that you can take a look at that. That's the PDF of the text that was on the slide. Actually, I'm just realizing that I didn't share what I thought I shared. Hmm. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened to that. I will add it to, oh wait. I will add it to the document with the links afterwards. I'm not sure what happened there. So this is about translanguaging, which is using the student's home language in as part of the instruction. And when we do that, it helps them to engage more meaningfully in grade level tasks. And basically, we're using the home language as an asset and a stepping stone to help them learn English. In the past, the approach has been that students should, if you're in an English speaking classroom, you only speak English. But what that means for a student that's not fluent and maybe very much an emerging speaker, that they don't speak at all. So by using translanguaging, we allow them to start to bridge the gap between their home language and English so that they can then begin to acquire the English language.
Grammarly Go is the only generative AI product that you need. It's easy to use in the places you write.
From Brookhaven to Buffalo, our classrooms in New York State are multilingual places. Our students bring with them diverse and rich linguistic backgrounds. For years, educators denied this fact, forcing students to speak English or remain silent. Some students were even punished for using their languages in classes. In the 1960s and 70s, activists from Puerto Rican civil rights groups and others banded together and pushed back. They earned the right to educate the students in their communities bilingually. And they were right. Research shows that you have to leverage students' linguistic backgrounds in order to educate them. Of course, students need plenty of opportunities to practice a new language, but teachers should still encourage their students to use the, say, Spanish or Chinese words they know, even if the goal is to expand their repertoires to include English. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. Think about how kids play with whatever's on hand, cardboard boxes, string, bottle caps, to make their own fun. When they learn language, they bring materials to build with too. And we educators have to recognize that. And in today's multilingual world, the goal isn't just to teach our students English. Our students have the gift of bilingualism, and their lives are enriched when they're able to use all their languages critically and intentionally and flexibly and creatively. This critical, intentional, flexible use of language, that's called translanguaging. Translanguaging should be at the heart of teaching and learning for emergent bilinguals. So you might be thinking, this sounds great, but what if I don't speak the languages of my students? What do I do? Great question. I'm Sarah Vogel. I'm a research assistant at the CUNY New York State Initiative on Emergent Bilinguals. In this web series, we're going to be traveling across New York City and state, talking to teachers who make it happen every day, even those that
I apologize if, I don't know if you can hear the lawnmower in the background. They come every week at this time. Okay. So what are do you have experience with translanguaging? Is that an approach that you use with students in your classes who are ELLs or MLs? Is it a word that you're familiar with? Okay. Do you have students in your classrooms that are second language learners? Okay, and it depends, because if you have students that are more fluent in English, it's less of an issue. It's yeah, that's Bengali. Okay, that's yeah, so a lot of it depends on the level of fluency of the student, whether or not there's another child in the class who speaks the same language and is more fluent in English. There are lots of factors involved, but it is definitely an approach that can be very helpful in allowing students to access the content, because it's the language is the barrier. It doesn't mean that they can't conceptually understand what's going on. And so by using translanguaging, it gives students an opportunity to articulate their understandings in a combination. The other thing is you can use pictures, whatever you can do to help a student communicate what they're thinking and what their understandings are. So multilingual ecology is when the students' language practices and cultural understandings are used as resources in the classrooms for deeper thinking, clearer imagining, greater learning, and academic languaging. And it extends beyond the language practices of emergent bilinguals to include those of all students. Using technology, multilingual resources, displaying student work, connecting programs, on the outside the classrooms, on the school's walls and hallways, in the offices, entrance murals, parent information boards. So it's really, I think a lot of this is about valuing the diversity in languages and cultures and helping all students, one, to feel seen for who they are, but then also to begin to teach, not to begin, but to teach empathy and connection and understanding, and look at where are we the same and where are we different, and how do those things create who we are as a community, and how can we celebrate everything, learn from each other, celebrate the things we have in common, and then learn from each other's differences, both in language and culture. That's great with the Ms. Cueto with the kindergartners who are learning and speaking. Oh, nice. That when you translate and tell them they can answer in their language, they do it in English. That's great. The other thing is, I think kids are, especially young children, they really do pick up so much of the language quickly. So I think they often surprise us, but the thing is also that for some students, there are so many levels of language, and so knowing, like, being able to see as the teacher where the gaps are is really challenging. But the more opportunities we give them for a variety of ways of communicating, I think that the more helpful it is for us to gain insights and for them to build their confidence. Okay, I'm going to show you one more video. I'm looking at clock, and I want to stay on time here. This is I think a 4 or 5 minute video.
Currently, we're reading To Kill a Mockingbird, which is one of my favorite books, and I think it's a great book to teach this population of students. And one of my favorite quotes from this book is, you never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb in his skin and walk around in it. And I think that's what it's all about. I think as a middle school teacher, it's all about empathy.
Welcome back to Teaching Bilinguals, even if you're not one. I'm Sarah Vogel, a research assistant with the CUNY New York State Initiative on Emergent Bilinguals. Today, I'm here at Ebbets Field Middle School, an exceptionally diverse school in Brooklyn, New York. On any given day, you can hear students speaking Haitian Creole, English, Spanish, Arabic, and 2 dialects of Fulani. Ms. Shireen Chapman Santiago is an 8th grade English teacher here. And she truly lives by that philosophy from To Kill a Mockingbird, that you have to know students well in order to teach them. But how can you truly crawl into your students' skin if you don't share their language practices? In this episode, we're going to find out how she does it.
I think the quote really inspires me to dive deep and understand who the student is, and not just, a name on a roster, but who is that person and build a relationship.
Let's get into Ms. Chapman Santiago's tips for building relationships with her bilingual students. Tip 1. Ms. Chapman Santiago is a keen observer of her students' expressions and behavior.
First and foremost, cues, body language. When you give them something and they're just like, they delve into it, or they kind of just like look around. So I always look at those things. I think I'm a mother first, right? So I'm very in tune to their emotions because they are teenagers and they're very dramatic. And so when they come in with that face, I'm not going to continue with the lesson. I'll direct the students to do something and I'll pull them out in the hall and have a conversation. If we don't speak the same language, I'll pull out my phone, I'll type the question, give it to them, they'll respond. And I've literally had conversations like that and uncovered some really deep and personal things that actually helped me deal with the students accordingly.
Tip 2. When it comes to academics, Ms. Chapman Santiago provides opportunities for students to show what they know using home language practices. That way, she can see their strengths and their challenges.
The starting points vary from child to child. So even if you have 3 kids from Yemen, one may have had like some very advanced education, some may not because they're from the rural part. Those that are more proficient have an easier time making the transition from their language to English, while those maybe with formerly interrupted education may need more interventions. I don't know the languages of the room, but I look at their work and I can infer where they are and modify accordingly. If I gave her the prompt in Arabic and she only wrote 2 lines, and I start wondering, is she proficient in Arabic? And then I'll compare it to her counterpart who'll have a full page. And then I'm like, maybe I'll need to give her a little sentence starter or a little bit more background. In the beginning of the year, January, she started out with just 2 lines.
And then what do we see kind of later in the year with your supports, writing?
So she's writing more in Arabic, but it's half a page now. And then she's now attempting to write in English. And even though it's 2 lines, it's a victory for me. But today's entry was awesome. Where is that? It says, I wear my hijab. I don't know what that says. With my Islamic clothes, which makes me glamorous. And I was like, yes, you are glamorous.
Tip 3. Based on her observations, Ms. Chapman Santiago creates scaffolds that draw on students' home language practices. Students who are literate in home languages benefit from translated copies of texts and prompts, like this exit slip. While students complete this assignment, they can talk to a partner using whatever language they'd like to ensure they understand what's being asked of them. In the end, they must answer the question in English so Ms. Chapman can see how they progress on specific language objectives.
Google Translate is always open. And then where I can, I have students also help. And I'll send things home to like older sisters or mom, parents for feedback, and it's just right. But it is a challenge. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of work, but it's necessary if you want everybody to succeed.
To recap, Ms. Chapman Santiago uses clues beyond language to help her understand her students. She makes careful inferences from students' home language practices, even if she doesn't always understand what they say or write. Ms. Chapman Santiago welcomes all kinds of language expression in her class and provides resources in home languages to students who she knows will benefit from them. Ms. Chapman Santiago demonstrates you can teach bilinguals even if you're not one. Join us next time.
Currently, we're reading To Kill a Mockingbird.
I am looking at the time, and I want to you have access to the slides, and they will resend them to you the link to you tomorrow. But that was in the chat. I can put it in the chat again because we're not going to be able to get through all of it today. So I just want to show you this. It's a quick graphic of an inclusive school environment. And it's really, a lot of this is something that would have to be done, from an administrative perspective, but you can in your classroom do a lot of these as well, because creating establishing a sense of urgency that is yours. A guiding team, it's great if you have colleagues that you can work with this on, creating a vision for what you want your classroom to look like. Oh my goodness. All right. I am not a fan of slides. Okay, so just really thinking about what you can do to create an inclusive classroom for your students, and where you can recognize the languages that they're bringing in, how you can help them feel more secure. I think, just that idea that she was talking about in the quote, that you never really understand someone else's perspective unless you are in their skin. We can't do that, but we can certainly imagine and some of you may have had the experience. You may be bilingual learners, or maybe came to this country as a child. That's not my experience. And so for me, I try to think really hard about, my own school experience and how it would have been very different if I was in an environment that was new, if I didn't understand what was happening, if I felt, very scared. I think a lot about my grandmother, who came here when she was 13, from Italy and was put into a first grade classroom because that's what they did back then. And, you know, just the mortification of it and like the really the trauma of it, even, you know, 60 years after the fact. So I try and think about what would I, you know, what would I want for myself as a child and what would I want for my own child should one of them be in a situation like that. And I don't think that's the perfect solution. I think, you know, we have to educate ourselves and look at the research, but that goes a long way towards really helping us think about the best ways of presenting information to our students. So you have all of the resources from today. And again, I will add that missing link to the document that you already have. It'll just update the document and you will have access to it. And I'm going to shut off the recording because we're basically done with the content, but I need to give you the link for the feedback form.